Hello, amigos. It's Celeste Leon, and welcome back to the Light to Success podcast, a place where we can discuss how to strengthen our mindset, increase our confidence, and maintain a high level of motivation to reach the next level of success in our lives. So, let's get started. Welcome back, friends, to the Light to Success podcast. I'm excited today because we have an incredible guest. And this guest has done the type of things that most of us are afraid to do. You know, those big dreams that most of our friends or family have never done. The things that we want to do, but oftentimes we just don't know where to start. And his name is Jim Morris. He's a 4-time entrepreneur and the CEO of Impact Event. I actually met Jim because he is the founder of an incredible motivational conference here in Nashville that he hosted a few months back at the end of 2023. I attended. I got to meet so many incredible people. I've actually had some of the speakers from that conference here on the podcast. I've been able to make amazing relationships from that event. So thank you, Jim. I know that is not easy to create something like that, but yet you made it happen. And I know you have so many amazing things in the works. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about my story and hopefully impact some of your guests and audience. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And Jim, so I want to kick it off with, what's your why behind creating the Impact Effect Conference? How did you come up with that idea? And how did you think, how can I make this happen in Nashville?
Great question. Coming out the gate strong. I like it. I like it. Well, my why specifically relates to my daughter. And, I was at a conference about a year and a half ago and realized, wow, I have a daughter on the way, like in a month from now. And one of the speakers had said something that was just so important in that time being that really changed my life. And what they said was, you need to focus on the relationship you have with yourself. And in that process, I had created a document. I completely didn't pay attention to the event and was just in my phone. And I created this document called Ellie Will Be Like ... And that document was all the characteristics and values that I wanted my daughter to be and that I wanted to instill in her. And what I realized in that moment was I was only about...
What are some of those qualities, Jim, that you wrote down there?
Yeah. So Ellie will be like someone who inspires and motivates, doesn't bring someone down. Ellie will be like someone who always seeks the good in people. Ellie will be someone who believes 99% of humanity is good and the 1% shouldn't ruin her outlook on humans. Ellie will be honest, right? Ellie will focus on sincerity. Ellie will be dedicated, committed. Ellie won't drink excessively. Ellie won't smoke nicotine products, right? I really went to all depths. And what I realized was I was only 50% of those things on that list that I wanted my daughter to be like. So through that process and that journey, the last year and a half, I've consistently tried to create and make changes to my life because I know that she's watching all the time. She's taking it in, she's learning, and she's acquiring knowledge based on how I act, how I show up, and how I impact others. So my why was to really create a memorable experience that I could share with my family that we could cherish for years to come. And that was why I did the conference. That's why I did it so big. That's why I took so much risk, was because I wanted to represent my daughter in a way where we could look back on this. One of the coolest things about the event was we took a photo with her sitting on stage. And that's a memory I'm going to cherish forever. So that would be my why, is her. And, in that moment when I was at an event, it changed my life. It changed everything to come in the future. And if I can recreate that experience for others and give some information or knowledge or reposition a concept to where someone needs to hear it a little bit differently or hear it in that moment in real time in their life, the way that I did, then I want to continue to show up and provide those opportunities for the attendees in the conference, but also continue to work on myself and do hard things and take risks to show those characteristics to my daughter.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful, Jim. I love how it's about impacting others, but it all sparked from wanting to impact your daughter. But most importantly, you want to do it through a real life example, right? Because we were kids one day, and we remember when our parents used to tell us, go do this, go clean your room, but they didn't do it. We were like, how can you tell me to do something you're not doing yourself, right? Because as people, we copy behavior more than words that people tell us. So I love that. I love that you are implementing that, and you're pushing for others to implement that and level up and go to that next level. So that is amazing. And I have attended your events, multiple of them at this point. So I can definitely say you're doing that.
Thank you.
Jim, you mentioned something also about risk. You said that when you were doing this, you took a lot of risk. Let's dive into that because, I think from the outside, perhaps we see all the glamour. Oh, look at Jim. Look at this success. He's doing such wonderful things. It was probably so easy. He was just born with that talent. But no one got to see the behind the scenes of how work. I'm sure that it took you months of putting this together. Financial risk, maybe money, time, etc. And most businesses, I think as a whole, there's risk involved, or there's that initial investment where you don't see any return, and most people quit. So talk to me about the risk that you took, and how did you push through even in those moments that weren't necessarily giving back the results that you were expecting?
Great question. So if I could look back on this, the only one thing I regret about the conference was not sharing the struggles in real time. So as we move into 2024, part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some of those risks, some of those challenges, some of those missed opportunities, because I don't want to come across as everything was perfect and I wasn't scared. Because at the end of the day, that's just it's a blatant lie. I remember through the process having a deep conversation with my wife at the dinner table in tears, having to say, hey, should I keep going? We have X amount of dollars in the bank. We have X amount of responsibility. Do you support this? So I would say that, taking risk is going to pop up at all times, in times of need, in times of success, in times of struggle, when you're feeling challenged. And the only person that knows when to take the risk or how much of a risk to take is going to be you. And you can get outside counsel. You can run this through mentors, coaches, leaders, people that you respect, people that you admire. But at the end of the day, it's a decision that you have to make. And I believe in taking blind risk and blind trust. So what I mean by that is I trusted myself to figure it out when I didn't have all the answers, when there was a lot on the line. It was a $240,000 investment. I didn't take any outside money. That's a major risk. There's a lot of fear in that, especially for something that I haven't done before. So through that process, what I realized was, in order for me to become the person I want to become, for myself, for my daughter, for my wife, for whoever, I had to take risks and do things strategically different so I could become someone new, so I could become someone else that I wasn't today. And through that process, that's exactly what happened. I had to become someone that I wasn't and acquire skills in real time and learn and grow. I think the dedication and putting yourself in those situations really allows you to step into a superpower you don't know you have. And one of the things that I learned the most, and one of the things that I was struggling with, was how to ask for help, how to remove the ego, how to go from winning at such a high level when I was in real estate to taking on this massive risk, this largest investment financially, and quite honestly, this largest investment for my brand. There was a lot of people that wanted me to fail. And I was telling this in a podcast the other day. It wasn't that someone came out and said, "Oh man, you pulled it off. I thought you were going to fail." But it's the subtle conversations of, instead of "you did it," it was "you actually did it." And that word "actually" tells me a lot. And I heard it a lot through a lot of folks in my network and in my community. And what that taught me was, no matter what I do, no matter if I win, if I lose, or if I fail, or if I succeed, there's always going to be that resistance in someone or something that's always going to pop up. So I had to push through that, and I had to learn and utilize that to my advantage. So I would just say, if you're not taking risk, do you truly believe in yourself? Do you truly believe in your skills and your talents? And I'm not saying go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or jump into something you know absolutely nothing about and it doesn't excite you and you don't find joy in it. I'm just saying that when your brain is telling you, no, be safe, be comfortable, think a little bit deeper. Calculate what you're risking. And at the end of the day, if it's money, you can always make that back. What I learned through that process, I couldn't have paid a coach. I couldn't have. I had to do it. I had to go through that experience. I've got mentors in my circle that do the same thing, that throw massive conferences that I'm friends with. They come, they speak on my mastermind. They're amazing at what they do, but I still had to go through it myself to truly understand. And you can quantify risk in different ways. You can quantify winning or losing in different ways. But the reality of it is, and the reality for me was, I already won because I decided to do it.
Yes.
And when I have strong beliefs, my beliefs equate to strong emotion. So my belief was so strong that it created a strong emotion and allowed a lot of synergy and brought the right people together to come and experience the conference. So I would just say, for anybody, that struggles with risk, is you can analyze the loss and you can analyze if it doesn't go right. But why wouldn't you spend your energy in a positive way to analyze all the things that can happen when it does go right? And that's what I would focus on. And I would focus on just getting better every day and celebrating those small wins and creating goals so big that when you come up short, you're still absolutely crushing it and absolutely winning.
Oof, mic drop right there. That was so powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing also first of all, the amount of money that you invested, which that's a lot, right? Because some people invest 10K, 20K. That's next level for sure. I mean, there's all kinds of price ranges. But then the other thing I like you talked about was about being underestimated. Of those people, that comment you made about you actually did it, because I can relate. I can totally relate to me wanting to do some bold moves in my life. And then sometimes it's your inner circle. The people that you think that would be cheering for you are the ones doubting it. But I don't know if you agree with this, but oftentimes what I tell myself is that, the one that has to believe in my dreams the most, it has to be me. Because the vision that I have in my head, nobody else can see it. And the big goal is to make that vision come to life so that others can see it. So what would be your advice for anybody who perhaps they want to start this new business or they want to do anything bold in their lives, and those they love the most are the ones perhaps bringing them down? What would you tell them?
Well, first, I would identify the fact that you can't have hatred or negativity towards that person because they're most likely trying to protect you, right? So when you're going to a family member and you're telling them your idea and they're like, don't do it, it's risky. You can't have aggression towards them because they're just trying to protect you. They're trying to keep you in a comfortable state because there is a lot of opportunity to lose. There is a lot of risk, right? So I think the first thing is just identifying that it's okay that people are trying to protect you. People aren't doing it because they don't want to see you win. People aren't saying those things because they don't care about you. They're saying it because they do care about you. But I would also say once you identify that, you need to remove your conversations around those people because they're not supporters. And that's okay. And it's not a bad thing. That's the part that I struggled with. I'm like, man, why does this person say this? And why is, this family member, saying I'm an idiot? Why would I do that? And my own brother, what are you going to get from that? Why would you do that? And I'm like, I can't even have the conversation with you because you don't even understand what the benefit is. And it's not necessarily about me 100%, right? Now, obviously I have to have self-interest, right? Because you can't have, and I learned this recently, you can't have a win-win situation if you don't have self-interest, right? I want win-win situations. I don't want Jim loses and you win. I don't want I win and you lose, right? The whole goal is to create win-win experiences. Well, you have to have self-interest in what you're going to gain to have a win-win. But what I would say to those folks is you have to remove them from your conversations. You have to create proximity that is aligned. And this is one of the biggest things that I see most people struggle with. And I struggled with it. So I'm not talking that I'm some unicorn or I'm great. I struggled with this for a long time. The proximity is great, but the aligned proximity is the goal. Putting people around you that align with what you're trying to do, that support you, that bring resource, that advise, that educate, that connect you with someone that may be better to serve you, right? Those are the important people you need to surround yourself with. Because at the end of the day, people that are close to you, but the relationship might not be in alignment with what you're trying to do or what you're trying to achieve. That doesn't mean that they're not in alignment with you. That doesn't mean that they don't want good things to happen for you. It's just they don't understand it. They don't understand the why. They don't understand how come you're taking the risk. They don't understand the opportunity to come in the future and what you're going to gain from your brand and the relationships you're going to make. I mean, you talked about having some speakers on your podcast. Those same speakers are friends, right? Like I couldn't put a price tag on calling Jamie Miller a friend of mine. I couldn't, right? Awesome. Like I would invest that money again and lose it all because that is such a powerful relationship. So one of the things I learned through the process was being open to realize that I don't know what the benefits are going to be or all the benefits, right? Because I can't see the future. So going into it with a positive energy and removing those people that aren't in alignment for the why you're doing it or the benefit or the true reason is completely fine. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't talk, I just stop talking to certain people. That doesn't mean I don't check in with them. That doesn't mean we can't go hang out or our kids can do a play date. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that I chose to remove the conversation about business and what I was doing with those people because it didn't benefit me and it didn't benefit them. They were worried. They were scared. They wanted me to play it safe. They wanted me to be comfortable. They didn't want to see me take a risk like that. That's okay. We just don't talk about the business. We don't talk about that. And I choose to control that. Right. And I think that's the other piece is you've got to take control of the relationship and separate if it isn't something that supports and we just don't talk about it.
I love that, Jim. I love the fact that you said take control of the relationship because it's a very empowered perspective in a place of I take control for my life. And I also love the fact that you didn't say, well, just end the relationship and cross them out of your life, right? Just be strategic. You heard them. You know where they stand. Now let's act accordingly as you shared. And that's such great advice. I love it. I also love the fact that you talked about earlier about strong belief and strong emotion and keeping that cycle going. Because I'm sure during these times, right, as you mentioned, there was fear involved. There was self-doubt involved. Sometimes those voices of the inner circle that we did hear come back to our minds.
Oh yeah.
So, right,
Oh yeah, those inner
they
voices.
come back. So can you go back a little bit more and dive into what you mean by keeping that strong belief, strong emotion cycle, and how we can do that perhaps on a day-to-day basis, especially during those hard times?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, first and foremost, you have to have concrete belief in what you're doing to control the emotion. I learned this from a good friend of mine, Nick Cavuto. If you don't follow Nick Cavuto, I would definitely do that. And I'd definitely build a relationship with him because he's just an amazing human being. But he taught me that once I have concrete beliefs, then I can control the emotion. So when something sideways happens, when we lost a massive sponsorship, like a couple weeks before, signed contract, just they didn't have the money, they pulled out, right? I could have went down a slippery slope. I could have had negative emotion. It crushed me. And my initial reaction was anger. My initial reaction was victim. My initial reaction was, who the hell does this? Who backs out over $30,000 like 9 days before a conference? And what I realized was, Jim, you're straying from your belief. Your belief is this is going to be successful. Your belief is this is going to help people. Your belief is this conference is going to grow your brand. Your belief is this conference is going to make more.
Is that the concrete belief that you mentioned? So would that be the concrete belief would be this conference is going to be successful. This conference is going to impact people for the better. So those are examples. Okay, continue.
Yep. So I would just run through those beliefs and remind myself. I actually wrote them down on the back of a folder that I always carry with me with like documents that I just in real time need, right? It's like my go-to where my loose papers are. And I would read it. And whenever I had negative thoughts, whenever something bad happened, I would just breathe and I'd go to that notebook and I would read those things because I needed to visually see those things, because in times of stress, high cortisol, fight or flight moment, right? I just lost 30,000. I thought I was going to cash next week and pay a venue. I still owe the 30,000 to the venue. I don't have the cash, right? So in those moments, mentally just reminding myself wasn't enough. I personally have to physically see it and physically force myself to read it out loud to myself. That was what helped me the most. And in that process, what it did was it gave me gratitude. It gave me gratitude to say, wow, I'm just grateful of where I'm at. Wow. I'm grateful to have a friend like Nick Cavuto who taught me this and taught me to lean into my beliefs because they equate to emotions. And in that process, I changed what the emotion was. And you need to do that because you are going to have negative things happen. You're going to have things pull you left, pull you right, come off track. You're going to have people talk shit. You're going to have people back out. You're going to have just crazy things occur whenever you're doing anything, let alone something this large, incorporating 250, 300 people, So I just really go back to those beliefs. And any time in my life when I'm struggling, I go back to those written down beliefs. I don't do as much work in the real estate industry anymore. I chose that, right? Because I wanted to help small business owners and I wanted to consult and I wanted to get back into that piece of my life. Well, you know how hard it is to walk away from a successful real estate career that makes you a lot of money? It's really hard. And when I didn't land a consulting deal on the first call, or it took X amount of weeks of follow up and I had negative emotion, well, I had to go back to those beliefs. And my belief was, Jim, you need to consult so you can impact more people in a calendar year. Jim, you can't impact as many people as you wish and want to selling real estate. Now you can sell real estate and you can do that, but you need to focus on something that yields more impact to more people, because my belief is I should be impacting more people than I was. And my belief is I should not let money control what I do on a day-to-day basis when it comes to impacting others. So I had to go back and I have to read those, right? And it still happens. I lost a retainer client. I thought it was a big deal that I had. And my first thought was, man, I just go back and sell real estate. And I'm like, no, negative emotion, Jim. I got to go back to that document and read my beliefs, because I could go back into real estate and I could go back into that. But what I'm doing is it's going to pop back up that this isn't enough and this isn't serving me and this isn't what I'm called to be doing. So I had to go back to those beliefs, and I still often do. I'm not invincible. I have negative thoughts. And that's what I want to share with people is no one's invincible. You just see the highlight reel. And I prefer to talk about raw, real stuff because I'm not perfect and no one is. No one's perfect and nothing's perfect.
That's absolutely right. And I appreciate you sharing these moments of hardship and being vulnerable here, because I think this is genuinely going to hit home for many people listening. And I also think this is such a great exercise for those listening to write down what are your strong beliefs. Just like I think Jim just gave us a lot of examples that he uses personally. So definitely take some time, pause this episode and write yours so they can guide you for the rest of the year and through those hard moments that they're going to come. They come for all of us. So thank you there, Jim, for sharing those nuggets.
Yes.
A couple more questions here. We're having such an amazing conversation. I know that your business now, what I've seen and noticed, right, and when I hear you speak, you are putting such an importance on genuine relationship building, right? This is not just a transactional business, but it's about genuinely building that and keeping that going beyond the business part of it. So what would be your top, let's say, 3 tips for genuine relationship building?
So most people seek a relationship to sell a product or service. Now that's part of it. Remember, I was talking about self-interest, a win-win situation. The biggest tip I would have for anybody is build a relationship before you sell a product. So how do you create a genuine relationship? You have interest in the other person and you're curious, right? You have real interest. You want to build rapport because you like that person, or you're aligned with their core values, or you see them with certain people that you respect and you want to get to know them. You want to work with them. You want to build a relationship. It's funny because today, as we're shooting this, I just talked about relationships in my mastermind group, and we went through an hour and a half. And at the end, we opened it up for a hot seat, and people were like, okay, well, here's a relationship I'm trying to build, and I'm doing this, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to say this. And even though we went over the criteria and the framework of how I build a genuine relationship, even right after that, those 2 hot seats, they wanted to go in and immediately sell a product to someone. Like, well, what questions can I ask? And I want to build this relationship and I want to sell this. Well, the reality of it is if you're going in to build a relationship just to sell something, it's actually not a relationship. It's an extended transaction, right? It's an extended transaction. You do 3 meetings and then you transact, and you just prolonged it, but you still want the same outcome. So I would go into a meeting of or building a relationship of how can I provide value? How can I be unique? How can I do research and position myself to help you? And a lot of people say, well, provide value, I'll send them a book or a podcast, and that's all great. And I appreciate that. But the reality of it is that's not enough value. How can you have a conversation with someone and actually help them? How can you carve out time each week to improve their life and help them with their goals and solve their problems? Because if you can encourage them, if you can benefit them, if you can provide real value, if you can do your homework and look at their Facebook, their LinkedIn, and really get to understand them and build rapport, then that relationship is going to come back to you. And it's probably going to come back to you in such a bigger way. And it doesn't necessarily need to be them hiring you or buying your service. Some of the best relationships I've built resulted in people introducing me to massive community leaders that I've sold tons of services and products to. That person actually wasn't the person that bought my product or my service. But the reason why they did that was because of how I looked at the relationship, how I gave value, how I showed up for them. So we tend to just want to go right to the sale. Even if that person aligns as your ideal customer profile, even if they're your avatar, whatever word you want to use, don't sell. And this is the biggest thing. That first meeting, that follow-up, when you're building that relationship, don't go into it with an outcome, right? We always go into those meetings, those Zooms, those face-to-faces with, okay, I'm going to pick up a client. I'm going to have a specific outcome. Don't go into that first meeting, that second meeting with an outcome. Go into it as if it's a relative. Talk to them like a human. Be you. Be you.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but you wouldn't talk to your best friend like that when you're having lunch with them. You wouldn't treat your cousin like that. How about we start with, hey, how are you? Hey, I noticed on your Facebook, you lost a grandmother a couple weeks ago. I feel for you. I see you. I lost my grandmother. That hurts. I'm here for you. I know we don't know each other that well, but I already feel connected with you because I've gone through that too. And, little stuff like that, that's personable, where you're saying, I see you, I hear you, I've been through it, I empathize with you. It sucks. I know it sucks. And just getting real and raw with those people without going into it and having or seeking an outcome will give you one of the best outcomes. And the best outcome from building a relationship, in my opinion, is a friendship. It's not a sale.
I love that. Those are such great points. It's about being genuine and also, again, investing that extra time, right? Because if you just want the transaction, you just want it to be quick. Sometimes it can go that way, but investing that time, it's the best things take time and effort. And it's just another way that's going to happen. So thank you for those tips, Jim. And one of the last questions I like to ask every guest on the podcast is, what does success mean to you? I think as we grow up in our communities, we think that there's these different types of success that we need to follow. And I'm sure if I were to ask you 10 years ago, what does success mean to you, Jim? It wouldn't be the same answer you give me today. So what does success mean to you today?
I think success changes a lot for me based on the period of time I'm defining what I want success to be, based on what's going on in my life, based on who's in my life, what relationships are around me, and who's involved. So if you asked me 10 years ago, it would be completely different than what success is today. But as of today, and this would probably be since I had my daughter and my family, this is probably always going to stay with me, but I'm also going to give you more of what success means to me in real time today. So the evergreen content maybe that flows with me forever would be, I want to create memorable experiences with my family that we'll look back and reflect on and cherish throughout life. So that's success for me. And I don't think that's ever going to go away, is creating those memorable experiences that we're going to cherish and get excited to reflect and look back on as we progress through life. What defines success for Jim Morris today in this moment is I want to be around and I want to work with people I admire. That's success for me right now, is I want to work with people and be around people and create relationships and establish friendships with folks that I absolutely admire.
That hits home. I love that. I love that answer. And I think that's something we all aspire to as well. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I find myself with amazing clients. I find myself spending time with amazing people. But there's a list. There's a list of 20 people that I absolutely admire. And my goal right now is to help them provide value and build a relationship. And not just to gain monetary value or pick up a client to make money, but to truly be around those people that I admire, to truly be in their ecosystem, to see how they operate, to see how they show up, and to learn from those type of people and help them if possible.
Absolutely. I love that, Jim. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. And this has been an amazing conversation filled with so many nuggets and wisdom and inspiration and genuinely actionable advice that people can take. So thank you again for being here. And any final words you want to share with everyone today?
Make an impact. However you define that, show up for yourself and make an impact on others.
Love that. Love that. I will be sharing Jim's social media, website, all of that in the show notes. I would encourage you all to connect with him, follow his journey, and attend his next events because they're awesome, super valuable, and the networking that you will have in those events are also amazing. Thank you, Jim, for being on the podcast. And until next time, my friends.
You have just finished listening to this episode, and I hope you're feeling inspired, enlightened, and ready to take the next step to accomplish your goals. Make sure to check out the show notes for any information shared. And if this message impacted you, please share this wisdom with at least one person you care about, and let's grow this movement across the globe. Always remember that the light to success is you, my friend. Until next time.